Hey there, my favorite co-parents. It's your girl, Alysha Price, and I would like to let you in on a nice little secret for the winter. With winter in full swing, now is the perfect time to start your skincare journey with Oheni Beauty. Your skin deserves a nice warm hug, and Oheni's handmade vegan soaps and moisturizers are just what you need to keep moisturized, nourished, and radiant through the winter season. Now, this family-owned DC-based brand specializes in small batch plant-based products that tackle winter dryness, and they focus in areas that big box brands just don't. Plus, with every purchase, you're supporting youth enrichment programs that teach STEM concepts through soap making. How cool is that? So treat yourself this season, visit Oheni Beauty, and use my code COPARENT20 for 20% off your order. Your skin is going to thank you for the love later. Hello, welcome to Co-Parenting Confessions. I am your host, Alysha Price. And before we get started, like, share, subscribe, because we want you to stick and stay here at Co-Parenting Confessions. We love you and we don't want you to go anywhere. Now, today we have a really special episode because I have someone who I happen to know personally, but also professionally. And I want to dig a little deep into what's going on in his life right now, because we're talking about the life of a man after divorce and who's co-parenting. So I have Brandon Jones with me today, and I'm excited to talk with you.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so dope. Okay,
Yeah,
so I have to give some background.
Okay.
So Brandon and I met, how many years ago was it?
It was pre-pandemic, so
Yeah.
it had to be about 5 or 6 years ago now. It doesn't feel like it, but yeah.
I know. Probably 6.
Maybe even a little longer.
I was still working at the other place.
Yeah, you were. So yeah, that might have been 2018 then.
Yeah. So we met at Cup of Java.
Yep.
And what we had in common is we were both working in social service spaces, organizations, serving community. And we held similar positions.
Yep.
We were both pretty high up in the organization we were working in, supervising several people, managing several programs. And it was like this moment we just kind of sat down and almost felt like a simultaneous sigh.
Yes.
Right, of like, you understand what I'm going through. So we talked a little bit about our work. I shared my book with you.
Yep.
And I remember you being like, I'm going to buy your book and I'm going to give your book to my wife.
Yep, and I did.
Yes. And it was like, okay, I'm digging the fact that you were progressive enough to be like, although we're married, she could still enjoy this co-parenting book. And she later wrote me and was like, I really enjoyed your book. I liked it. And then I talked with her about the fellowship. And then all these things grew from that.
Yes.
So I love the history of that and knowing that she has this co-parenting book.
Absolutely.
And who knew?
It was some weird foreshadowing,
Right.
apparently, yeah.
Who knew? So let's back up a bit and talk about the fact that, okay, you're divorced, newly divorced, and how I learned about this was Facebook.
Yeah, like many people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a post where you were like, I have an announcement to make in about a week. And this was not abnormal, right? Because of the work you do. And I'm always kind of checking in. What's Brady got going on? Let me cheer for my bro. Like, okay, he's got something going on. So I'm liking it. Can't wait to find out what it is. And a week later, you like post a picture of a cake.
I'm going to tell the story behind the cake because that caused a lot of controversy. And you never know who's watching. That's what I've learned about divorce. Because that cake was like a spur of the moment inside joke between me and one of my best friends. I was in Houston, Texas. Me and him, we were just kind of talking about this whole process, what divorce is going to be like. And as we're talking, you know how you talk with your friends and sometimes you're on social media together? I seen this cake and I just reposted it as a joke to him. But that signaled something because a lot of people that seen the next post that we're going to talk about referenced that cake. And I was just like, man, people were paying attention to what I post. So yeah, the cake has caused a little bit of controversy in my life at that time.
Yes. Yeah. And what it was funny for me because I was like, dang, I didn't know Brandon had it in him. Like I was like, this is this guy who's like so my mannered and just like just the big teddy bears, silly hearts. And I seen this cake and it was like, I might be First Street. Yeah. I can't even remember exactly what it said.
It was pretty close.
So tell me what these streets have been like.
Oh, you want to get to the streets?
What had the streets
The
been
streets have not been bad for Brandon. The teddy bear thing works apparently. And dating today was very different than dating in the past. Mm-hmm. Like, prior to being married, it was 2009, 2010. The internet was there, but it's nowhere near what it is today. And, it honestly, I'm in a way different position than I was in back then too. So like, I'm a man of resources. Now I have more time. I have a different mentality. So honestly, dating has been very easy for me. Like very easy. Not complicated. It was overwhelming at first. The cake, I think, kind of signaled to some people. And then the next post, this opened the floodgates because the DMs went crazy on not just Facebook, but Instagram as well. And then personally, like people that knew me, they were texting me like, is this true? Like, what's going on? So for me, the dating life, the streets haven't been hard at all. Okay. It's been a cakewalk, honestly. I ain't gonna lie.
I love to reference, there was a previous podcast episode where shout out to Pierre Douglas,
I'm familiar with
realtor and comedian extraordinaire. We had a pretty viral clip of him where he was like, I didn't want this life.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in the street.
Yep.
And so I bring that up to say, I remember you saying like you didn't file for divorce. So share with us what you feel comfortable.
Well,
but how did the divorce happen?
Yeah. So technically I did file for divorce, but I didn't ask for the divorce. So ultimately what happened was I work a lot. That's one of the things I think that kind of brought this on, is me working so much. But part of me working so much is the dynamic that we had in our family. My wife was a stay-at-home wife for probably since I met you around 2018, 2019. And so that, that made me bring in the additional income that she wasn't bringing into the house anymore. And I was up north doing a training. And I remember I drove up that day and I drove back. So I was tired. I went, knocked out the keynote, and then drove back home. And I remember coming back and she was like, I want to talk to you, which is not uncommon for a husband and wife, for us. Because at the time, we had a very open communication in our relationship. If something was wrong, we always talked about it. So it wasn't nothing to me. I was like, all right, let's talk. So we had dinner, put the kids down for bed, and she was like, okay, let's have our conversation. And when we started having a conversation, it was like this long list of like things that she was requesting that I do. Now, many of the things I was already doing, so it wasn't anything. But then there were some things I'm like, well, what does this look like? What does this mean? Because typically in our relationship, we bargain, right? So it's like, you want me to do this? Okay, where do you pick up the slack here? What do you need here? But this was just like demands, like you need to do these things for me. So I was like, okay, this seems like a longer conversation than tonight. Let's wait and table this till, I think that was on a Tuesday. And I was like, let's talk about this on Friday because the kids were going to go to her father's house. So she was like, okay, she didn't say anything. She left. I went, kind of unpacked a little bit, kind of settled myself in, and probably about an hour, maybe hour and a half later, she came into the area that I was in. She was like, so we're not gonna talk about this? And I'm like, I thought we agreed that we were talking about this on Friday. She was like, no, we'll talk about it now. And then that's when she got angry, and nothing was the same since then. So that Friday did come. I tried to smooth it over with the dinner, try to take her to Baltimore, Roseville, some nice steakhouse. Man, it was good getting there. When we got there, we got into an argument because I didn't make a reservation. There was no seats. We had to wait. And at this restaurant, like, if you want to sit down, you got to sit at the bar, right? And the bar, ain't nobody getting up. So I'm like, let's just go somewhere else. I'll take you wherever you want to go. She was, no, I want to go here. And I'm just like, oh, boy. So we get into a little waiting. And yeah. So now I'm like, let's just go somewhere else. That turns into a little, argument in the car. And eventually she's like, I still want to go here. So I'm like, at this point, let's just go. We eventually get a space. We sit down. We actually have a good dinner. Great dinner. Okay. We met another couple there. We're having like good couple conversation. It was fun. Then we're like, okay, let's finish our conversation at home. She's like, I'll make margaritas. All right, dope. Let's go. So we go back home. The car ride's kind of quiet. There's nothing really happening. We get home. I'll never forget this moment. We get home. She goes in first. It's Friday, so this is when the trash is picked up. I don't get the trash bags to bring them in the house. So she's in the house. I come in. She's upstairs. And I turn on the TVs, Colorado football team, Deion Sanders. They playing. So I just sit down. I watch the game till she comes back down. I doze off for like 5-10 minutes. No lie. This is like 5-10 minutes. And then when I come back, I'm like, what happened? Like, where she's nowhere to be found. Ain't no margaritas made, nothing. So I go upstairs. She's in the bed watching Sex in the City. And I'm like, what happened? Yeah. She was like, what do you mean what happened? I'm like, where are the margaritas? What we doing? She was like, no, we ain't doing that no more. And I was like, well, what happened? She was like, if I was important to you, you wouldn't have dozed off. And I was just like, oh damn.
Something going up.
Yeah, it was on a Friday. Yeah, it was on a Friday. Yes, Friday. And so I was like, oh, my bad. Like I wasn't. I'm like, why didn't you just like you seen me? Why didn't you just tap me and say, come on, let's have a conversation? But she was like, no, if I was important to you, you wouldn't doze off like that. And I was like, all right. So that eventually turned into like a 2-hour argument. Like, no lie, me asking questions, doing the psychological thing that I did, her being annoyed by it, her going back and forth. And then finally, she just snapped and her voice elevated. You know, I'm telling her to chill because I don't want the police to come. And then eventually I break and I'm just like, you know what? You can go. And I just told her, you can get the F out. Like, which was the wrong thing to say. I admit it. That was my fault. Because then she was like, oh, that's what this is all about anyway. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, okay, something's not right here. And then from that day, I don't remember the exact date. It was in November. Nothing was the same. And we tried couples counseling, church, friends, workbooks, even reading books together. There was some marriage book that we tried to do with the whole guide, and all that just fell apart. It was nothing. It was nothing. And then I knew that things were probably not going to turn around on Valentine's Day. That was like my marker because I had put together like a little Valentine's Day gift or kit kind of like, you know, like ladies, y'all like a lot of different stuff. So yeah. I get her like a little t-shirt. She decided to go back to work. That was a big thing for her. So I bought her like, you know, some stuff for her to go back to work. I bought her like a little getting back into business kind of t-shirt, some little candies and some AirPods, right? Because she had unfortunately ran over her AirPods. This is kind of a funny story. I found her AirPods ran over in the driveway. So I bought her some AirPods. And that morning, I woke up, gave her the gift. She was getting ready for work. She started taking stuff out of the bag and then giving it to the kids. Right in front of me, yeah, and that's when I was.
But she knew the gift was for her, right?
No, it was. I was like, "Happy Valentine's Day, here you go," and then she started to take stuff out, and literally, the kids are getting ready for school. She's like, "Yeah, you can have that candy. You can, and then she was like, "Why did you give me these to the AirPods?" I'm like, "Cause you ran yours over." She looked me dead in my eyes. I was like, "I don't need these."
Wow.
And I was just like, "Okay, this is a whole nother level." Can't say just disagreements.
What do you think that maybe you didn't see? Almost sounds abrupt. You know what I mean? It was like, was there some sign or some signal that maybe you missed?
Yeah, and you know, reflecting on this, I didn't show up for her the way she needed. So there's some additional things that have led us to that November date, right? So we have a 3-year-old, and our 3-year-old, going back up, we have 3 children. Our first 2 children were born in the birthing. So our 3-year-old was not. She was supposed to be. But my wife at the time ended up having a high-risk pregnancy. So she had to go to the hospital. She ended up being hospitalized on her birthday of all days. The worst thing ever for about 3.5 weeks until she got an induced date. Middle of the pandemic. So the kids can't go in because they weren't vaccinated. And there was no vaccine for kids at the time. So they couldn't see their mom. She couldn't see her children. She could barely see me. I can only go in for a little bit. And she's pregnant, right, with this new high-risk pregnancy. So that's a lot of stress, a lot of stuff going on. Then we get induced, have the C-section, which she was very opposed to doing. Then our child's in the NICU for 50-something days, right? It's a long time. So all that's traumatic. A lot of stress, a lot of back and forth between our home and the hospital. During this time, she rekindles a relationship with her mother. Her mom steps in and helps us, which was amazing. We're very blessed for that to happen. And they're all working through, you know, she's got some mom trauma. I'm not going to go all into that, but they're working through their stuff and bonding, you know, with the baby at the same time. And a year later, her mom gets sick and suddenly passes away. So it's like compound things back to back, right? So mom passes away. We buy a home about a month before mom passes away. So we have this big event happen. Mom passes. We're prepping mom to potentially stay with us because she got sick. That doesn't happen. And now it's just grief.
Yep.
It's nothing.
And milestone after milestone, that was just really huge events happening in your life.
So, you know, our mom passes away in April. November is the day when everything kind of fell apart. So like, what, 7, 8 months later, she's like, there's some rediscovery for myself. There's some things that I need to just show up different. So what I missed, to answer your question, was I didn't know how to show up for her for what she needed at the time. And what I thought I was doing, which is the right thing to do, taking care of the family, being it for the kids, paying the bills, still being attentive to her needs, but not the way she's requesting. That's what I missed. I did not know how to show up for her the way she wanted me to show up for her. And when she was trying to tell me how she wanted me to show up for her, I didn't agree with it at the time because I'm like, I'm doing the things. I'm doing the things.
What else do you want from me?
What? I had my Tyrese moment, right? Like I was like, what else did? Because I did not know. I honestly didn't know. And here I am doing all the things that what you would assume you want a husband to do.
Yes.
But it's not enough. So now my ego gets in the way.
Yep.
Right? As I reflect, back on that time, like, who are you telling me? Like, who are you to say I ain't doing what I need to be doing? I'm handling all the business. There's tons of women who would love to be in your position. What are you complaining about? I've always had your back. What's different now? What was different was she needed specific things that I just wasn't seeing.
Was she articulating those specific things?
No.
See, that's the problem. A lot of times, us, as women, we want things and we think because you know us or we think we're 10 steps ahead of what we know you need. Because we pay so much attention to you guys. We know when you're hungry. We know you're a little tired. You know you can't watch the game. We know all of these things.
Right.
So we're expecting you to feel the same way and have that same intuitiveness about us.
Right.
And it's not the same for men.
No.
It just isn't. We have to be able to say, listen, I need you to do A, B, C.
Yeah.
And this is how you do your things sometimes. You need to be patient enough to do that.
Yeah.
Because a 12-year marriage
can fall apart.
That's
absolutely. There were times where I would say to her, like, I feel like you want me to read your mind. Because like I did not know what she wanted. Like, I remember this was my last ditch effort. This was like, is this going to work? I had sent her some flowers like a week before Easter. I won't forget this either. She came home and was like, don't ever do that again. And I was just like, what is that? Yeah, same flowers to her job. She's like, don't ever do that again. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, why are you telling her to see flowers? She couldn't articulate why she didn't want me to do that. But the fact that she said that, I was like, yeah, we're done. And then probably about 2 weeks later, she had a work trip. No, not yet. She had came to me a few days later and was like, I think I want to get a divorce. And I kind of felt like it was coming. I just didn't know when. So I was like, okay, are you sure? Do you know what that means? Do you just need some space? And then we kind of figure it out. So I was like, give me 2 weeks. Let you think about it. Let me think about it. Let's have another conversation and figure out what happens. Then she went on her work trip. And then when she came back from that, she was like, yeah, I want to get a divorce. And then I put it into motion. So that's kind of how it all happened. The divorce went real quick. We had the custody stuff figured out probably like less than a month when I filed. Because we were aligned on the kids. It wasn't the kids. It was like, we knew exactly what we wanted for our children. We already had them in the school district we wanted them in. We knew what the split would look like. So that was like the easiest part. It was more of the financial piece that we kind of fumbled on a little bit. Still had a quick divorce. Like it only took about 2.5, 3 months.
And I need you to say it again. Still had a quick divorce. You know how many people are out here living unhappy?
Yeah.
Because they think the divorce process is going to be this long, drawn out thing. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to.
No, it don't. No, it can be though. It can be.
Because Halle Berry, it's like 10 years.
Well, she's got a lot of experience.
But there now, she does. But I love that you share that though, because there is all of these myths about what divorce feels like and looks like. And it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out thing. If you know and you're aligned on what you want for your children, it does not have to be this painstaking process.
Yeah. And obviously, I think the children piece is what keeps it kind of extended, is not figuring out. And the kids, unfortunately, become weaponized, which we both did not want. And we were in agreement with that, like right away. Like, we don't want our kids we already know they're going to be harmed by this. We want to minimize that harm as much as possible. And I think, goes back to co-parenting. We've already had a co-parenting mindset, even when we were together, because we didn't parent the same. And it was okay. We respect each other's approach. And when we were aligned with things, it was okay. And when we weren't, we supported each other's approach to parenting. So when it came to divorce, we've already had those patterns and those things already established. So it wasn't a big deal there. And honestly, yeah, the custody piece is what holds a lot of people up. So once we got that off the table, it was just figuring out how to make these numbers work where we both can be okay. And I wasn't gonna get screwed over, because that's another part of those myths that men just get destroyed, which some do. But there are ways for yourself not to get destroyed.
What would you say is a number one way that you learned that made you thought was a myth of how this could go horribly, terribly bad, but it actually didn't?
Yeah, bargaining with your lawyer, because your lawyer is your number one advocate once you get divorced. Technically, getting divorced, you're being sued. And I don't get sued often. I have been sued. But this was the first time I got sued by somebody I cared about.
Yeah.
Like, somebody I knew.
That's real.
And so for me, it was like, part of my heart was to protect this person. But part of my heart's like, F you. Like, I'm trying to get my payback. You don't want to be with me, you're gonna get nothing.
Yeah.
But I knew that if I was gonna fight that type of battle with her, it was gonna extend. It probably would have went to court, and probably our children would have been involved in a way that I didn't want them to be involved with any of this. So for me, it was like, what is my maximum number that I know that I can afford? And then tell my lawyer that and say, help me bring this down as much as we can, and save as many of my assets as I can.
Yeah.
So once my lawyer kind of had that, she was ready to go. Now, my lawyer, shout out to her. She was amazing. She also was pregnant, so she had some motivation to get this divorce done before she went on maternity leave, which helped too. So she was ready to go. But she listened to me. She was like, Brandon, what do you need? What do you want? What don't you care about? And once I was able to lay all that, out for her, she was like, okay, let's work with this. Let's see what we can do. And I think that made a big difference. Now, it was a pretty penny I spent, but what I stayed.
I saw you post it, though, and you were like, wait a minute, I'm divorced, so how am I still getting?
I just got one more invoice. Divorce was finalized in July. I just got another invoice now.
What?
I think it's the last one, though, because it was real small. Okay. But I was still like, y'all, we done. Right. We don't need no more. I don't spend enough money with y'all. Be good. We got everybody got what they want.
A big takeaway from me from what you just shared was that it does not pay to be stuck in the space of revenge.
No, absolutely.
Like, it will cost you more to be petty and trying to fight than it does to just find a way to resolve things quickly.
Absolutely.
And move forward.
Absolutely. And, I've always been the type of person, I try to think down the road, right? So for me, I knew if I fought her on a lot of the stuff she was asking for, it was going to impact the kids. Because now that's the leverage she has on me, is keeping me away from my children, just based on how laws are set. So me knowing that, going into that, I'm like, how do I make this as easy enough of a process where I can still see my children? They still have somewhat of a family dynamic between both of us, where they're not used as pawns. That was my biggest thing. It wasn't about me. All the resources I have, I'm confident enough in myself that I can get it again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that. It was the fact that I didn't want my kids to get caught in the middle of it.
And I mean, flex. Shout out to you. I'm confident enough in myself that I can get the bags back.
Yeah. I'm all about
I love that. Because, the other thing I want men to even hear in this, there are so many men that are unhappy.
Absolutely.
Unhappy in their marriages.
Absolutely.
And they just think that's what marriage is, honestly. Yeah. No, some men think I'm supposed to be with this woman who I love.
Yep.
And we have children now, but I really don't like her.
Right.
And she's not nice to me, but this is what marriage is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be that. And they're afraid to break that up. You're afraid to leave those situations because what it looks like to be a single father, what the money might be.
Right.
And I love that you're like, no, my DMs is plugged. I can get the bag back over here, daddy, like no other.
No, I've had to embrace it, right, for my own mental well-being. And, I often use this hashtag. I haven't told nobody, so anybody get this.
Okay.
D&D. Now, a lot of people think it means do not disturb, but it really means divorce, not dead. So, like, I took a mentality, like, listen, like, I still have life to live. I'm not even 40 yet. Like, I'm here. I'm about to figure this out. I'm still going to be a father. I'm going to figure out co-parenting because it's going to change as our kids get older and they introduce new things. That's not going to look the way it looks today. I'm not going to be disrespectful to my now ex-wife. She's got her own life. I got mine. I'm moving on. And honestly, I just wanted the best for her because, I don't want nobody to ever be miserable with me. Like, that's not Like if you need to figure it out, let's figure it out. I attempted to work it out with her. She didn't want that, so I was like, okay, if this is what you want, go ahead. Do what you need to do to get yourself together, because she has to still show up for my girls. I have daughters.
That's big.
So like they need their mom. I'm not saying they don't need their father. And if this, the roles are reversed and you have sons, I wouldn't say they don't need their mom, but she needs to show up for them every day. Even when they're not with her, she needs to show up because they want to call her and ask her something or get her approval. And like she needs to be in a well-being space in order to do that. So my job is to stay out of her way and let her figure out whatever she needs to figure out, because apparently that's why we got to the space in the first place. I didn't want to get a divorce. I'll be very clear. I thought we could figure it out.
Yeah.
But once I realized that the writing was on the wall, I had to say, okay, this is my, God's giving me a message here. This is my time to get my life straight and figure out what this next stage is.
Yeah. Most men that I've talked to all say, I didn't want a divorce.
Yeah.
Even if they were unhappy or they knew something wasn't going well, something wasn't working, they were still willing to ride it out.
Yep.
And it was a woman who was like, yep, I'm done. Yep. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time that you thought this could be your life?
No.
Yeah.
Not even going through it.
Yeah.
The first time it really crossed my mind was on Valentine's Day. That's when I knew, we're in big trouble here. Like this may be done. Because there was no turning back. And honestly, she was starting to pull away a little bit more around that time too. So like she had just started her job. She went back to the workforce. And then I think this is a woman thing in divorce.
Let's find out.
But what I've learned in this space, and also in my years of being a therapist, is that women start to change outwardly when stuff is divorced.
Oh yeah.
So right away she started changing her hair, and I'm like, "Hey, what we doing here? Like, where this wig come?"
Oh yeah.
Got like, what is happening? Or they'll go get a tattoo, or they'll get some piercings. There's some outwardly change. Then they'll go inwardly with the affirmations and the books and the, the storyboards and all that. Like that's a female thing. I think dudes, as guys, we internalize first and then extra we put it out afterwards.
Yeah.
But that internalized process, if you don't have any healthy coping skills or any outlets, you end up staying there and struggling. And that's what I didn't want. I'm like, nah, like I need to keep my mind fresh. A lot of people depend on Brandon for a lot of different things. I can't fold. If I fold, my kids first, they're going to go down. I run 2 businesses. I can't have those things. So I have people who depend on me for their livelihood. So I had to figure it out.
And we didn't touch on the fact that you have this therapy back.
Yeah.
So
that's important. We probably should talk about that.
It is, because the other thing is a lot of people assume, from therapists to counselors to pastors and preachers and all of these people who, their role is to really support and advise others, that they would not go through these types of things in their own lives. Yeah. Like you're all fixed. Everything you should be able to do, everything that's in the book that all these degrees led up to. Right. But you're human.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're also trying to navigate what a relationship is with another person. Right. And like you said, if, she's changing, she's evolving.
Right.
What can you do?
Right. One of the toughest things about this divorce for me, honestly, was the thing that I've dedicated my livelihood to is the thing that took it out. Right. So it's like, I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm not just the counselor. I'm the dude who works on couples, right? And that's the thing that mental health is the thing that brought it all down.
Yeah.
And it wasn't anything that I could avoid, right? That's her journey. That's her process. So no matter how much therapy I know, no matter how great of a therapist I think I am, it doesn't matter that I have all these advanced degrees, it didn't stop the mental health journey that she was on. Now, what did help me is that I do recognize those things. So I was a lot more patient with myself, with her. I was a lot more willing to understand what was going on. And I think it also helped with my level of forgiveness, because I don't blame her for anything. I feel like we could have probably tried to figure it out a little bit longer, but I get it. I get it. You can't be miserable with somebody. She's had several severe things happen. And it's going to be a journey for her to kind of figure out what's next. And if she feels like she doesn't want me in her life in that way, then I have to honor that and just step to the side. Now, as a man, my ego and my pride takes a hit. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Because I was that dude. Like you said, when you met me, the family guy, the father. I had my family in NPR in January of this year. I was divorced in July. Yeah. You don't think that hurt?
Right. Yeah.
Literally, the biggest.
Like really, it was part of your brand.
It was a part of my brand.
Your brand.
It was my brand.
Yes.
It wasn't a part of it. It was the brand.
Yeah.
So like, I literally displayed my family in one of the biggest publications in the state to being divorced. Like that hurt. Like I remember when I had to tell my staff, it was like the hardest email I've ever heard in my life. Like I'm getting a divorce, and I didn't tell them till like late May. Like a divorce was almost done by the time I let them know. But I think they knew something was going on because I was just a little bit more removed than normal. But yeah, my pride took a big hit. But I had to keep myself in a mental and emotional low space to keep moving forward.
So I want to tap into this really quick because you mentioned emailing the staff, telling the staff. I saw on social media. So we're now in a world right now. It's like you announce the shit that's going on in your life. Like we need, a post. So we need an email to let people know. What did that feel like for you? That it had to be because of your brand, because your family was your brand. It had to be to a certain extent public.
Yeah, it had to be announced. In this life, in this world, I have some notoriety. I'm not like the celebrity thing, but people know me. If you're in the field, you know who I am. So part of me has to announce it because when people meet me, they're like, how's your wife? And especially because at one point in time, she started to kind of come into my world a little bit. Like you said, like you talked to her. So like people are like, oh, tell your wife I'm going to send her an email. Like that happened to me at an event in July. And I'm like, should I tell them? I didn't tell them I was divorced. So I didn't want to have the conversation at that time. But I was like, yeah, I'll let her know. And I was just like, I'm never going to let her know. Like, it's not going to happen. So like for me, putting people on notice, for the people that know me very well, it was easy. For the people who just kind of get the public branding, it was hard. It was very, very hard. For my staff, like some of my staff knew what was going on. It was like 2 people, but everybody else had no idea. So sitting them and my board would happen, they were like, what? Like it was a shock. It was a shock. So, it is a little bit of a rebrand for myself, but really it's about being able to overcome trauma because this was traumatic, right? And that's really was my brand was carried by, because that's what people knew me for, was talking about trauma. So here's another life experience that I've gone through. Talk about how we can move through trauma. Really it's a post-traumatic growth dynamic for me because, my brand has been completely flipped upside down. But now I can show people like you can still have a healthy dynamic, even when stuff doesn't go the way you want it to go. So not only do I have to live that brand, I also get to promote it at the same time. And I think that's extremely healthy in today's time, where you have all different types of family situations happening. So how do you show that? How do you show up and make sure that, you can continue to do that as you move forward?
Yeah. My thing is being all the things.
Yeah.
And for me, my son is soon to be 22.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm the co-parenting lady. And I was like, getting to a point where I'm like, this is kind of getting old, right? Like, what am I going to keep talking about? Right. Although co-parenting never ends. You will, of course, be co-grandparents and blah, 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 right? But these events happen in our lives when we're actually living. We're human. Right. When you're feeling shit. Right. You're guzzling through shit. And even in the process of me doing this podcast, I've said things that I've completely reneged on, where I'm like, I'm not dating nobody when she is. I don't want this, I don't want that. Yeah. And then you find yourself doing different things. Yeah. And then because of the life experiences, all of a sudden there's like this resurgence of like new information and new ways to share and to tap into people and to have an impact.
Yeah.
And so I think this is amazing, for you, of course, that you're now in this space where you're like, I get to now talk about what this part of it looks like. Right. So what's happening with the girls? My daughters or the daughters. The daughters. I see your posts. Yeah. I see that you guys are co-parenting because you're getting them often.
Yes.
I'm going to tap into this lady who cleans your house.
Yes.
Because I need somebody to clean my house. But you're doing it. And it seems like everything is going well. What are they thinking?
Yeah, great question. It's an ebb and flow. I would say over the summer, it didn't hit them as much as it did when school started. Because, that's when the habits, the structure. So the summer where there's just summer camp and everything's free going and you're on your device half the day, they were cool with it. They're like, all right, when they're at dad's, they know that I'm a lot more lenient than when they're with their mom. So they figure that out right away. Like, okay, when we're at dad's house, you can do some stuff. Like we can go outside, be outside for 2 hours. Mom's gonna make us come inside. So like, they realize that this is different between both homes. Now, me being co-parents, we do have to agree on certain things. Like we bought our oldest daughter a cell phone this year for her birthday. She was doing some stuff she was supposed to be doing on her phone, so we had to punish her and take her phone away for a month, which she's so happy to get back in this week. She's been talking about it all week. But I'm like, don't get it twisted. You mess up again, please leave. We got to take our phone again. So we've had to be aligned on some things since now. But honestly, it's been a bargain. I will say that the back and forth dynamic, we're doing what's called a 5-2-2-5 schedule. So, they're pretty much at both parents' house all week. They're going back and forth. I think that's going to get tiring for them probably a year from now or so, because I can already tell they hate it.
Yes.
They don't. I know they don't like it.
I like guys get, and that's what I was going to say. How did you get on the 5-2-2-2? Like if you know that it's not necessarily the best for them, but
so like I said, we made an agreement on custody very early, and that was the plan that she proposed. Originally, I was going to do a week on, week off. She was like, let's do a 5-2-2-5. So I was just like, go with it. I was like, let's do it. Let's see what it's like. Now, my ex-wife didn't move out of the house until July, even though the divorce pretty much was finalized in early June. She still was in the house. We started that co-parenting dynamic while she was in the house still.
Okay.
So like her on days, I was out doing whatever I needed to do. And then her off days, she was out doing whatever she needed to do. So they were always home. When she moved, now they have 2 different locations to go to. It was still the summer, so it was a little bit more loose. But when school started, now we have bus routes to connect from 2 different homes. And we got pickup times and drop-up times. Now they're feeling it. And they're like, no, they don't like it at all. So, I think that as far as how they've emotionally respond, I am blessed. Like they have been really good at just being able to share how they feel, ask questions, tell me stuff I don't want to hear. It's like, okay, that's how you feel about that. Like my oldest, she's pretty reserved. She's going through her preteen phase, so she doesn't.
And she's what?
She's 11, so she's just kind of like feeling. She just started middle school. She's trying to figure herself out. So she's like, whatever you and mom got going on, I need to just figure it out and just stay on my way. My 8-year-old though, no, this is like my little evil twin. Like she acts just like her father, which I'm sure drives her mom nuts. But she drives me nuts because it's like I'm looking and talking to myself all the time. She's very vocal. She's very emotionally intelligent. She understands her emotions and her feelings, and she does not mind letting you know about them. And we had a very interesting conversation about a month ago. And she said some things, about her mom. I'm not going to repeat those things, but she was very honest and open, and it was hard for me to hear. And I was in this dynamic, like, how do I tell the co-parent
There you go.
the things that this kid is communicating to me?
Yep.
So I sat on the information for about a week, but I did tell my ex-wife, we need to talk. I'm not going to tell you what we need to talk about via email, because that's how we were communicating. But we need to sit down and talk about this because, our middle child, named Audrey, she's responding, and I don't know where this is going to go. Do we need to set up counseling now, or do we wait? So we had our conversation. We waited on counseling, but we did agree that if it gets worse than where it's at now, we're going to do some family counseling. So she's been probably the most vocal. She's the one, she wants to come sleep in the bed with me, and she doesn't want to be in her room. She wants to have daddy time. Like she's really feeling it. And I know she does those same things with her mom, because we talk about that. Now the 3-year-old, now she's going through her teenager stage. So she's just a tyrant, period. But she's pretty well aware as well. So she'll say things like, where's mommy? Or why isn't mommy here? Like, I'm at your house now. Or what? Can I go to mommy's? Is mommy picking me up? So she'll ask those questions.
Yeah.
So she's just, painting a picture that there's a dynamic happening here that she's just not familiar with. So I don't know. I think it's going to change. I'm just preparing myself for the changes as they go. Taking it pretty much month by month. How are they adjusting? I do think we're going to have to rework out the rotation schedule. That's going to definitely happen, because I can tell that this is not going to work for them. It works well for us because we get to see our kids every week. But for these kids, they're like, nah. And they have got to a point where they're like, Dad, I don't want to go to my mom's. I don't know if they've said that to her, But they share with me like, I ain't trying to go. Okay, can we just stay for a few
I
days?
see that weekly
Yeah.
in the work that we're doing here at the Price Dynamic, where kids are making an absolute decision of whose house they want to be at and whose house they don't want to be at, only because they're tired of picking up their things and moving their things or what transportation looks like. And it has nothing to do with, I don't like my mom or I don't like my dad or they're mean to me. But parents that are not mature enough or that are still in that, vengeful space choose to think that that kind of verbalization or I don't want to go, what I don't want to do is they don't like you. They don't want to be with you. So I love to hear that you guys are communicating about those things openly and what the girls are feeling is important.
Yeah. And if it gets bad enough, we'll make the adjustment as we need to. I don't think we need to go to court to do that. I think we're mature enough and in a space where we can kind of agree on those things.
Yeah. Brandon, I am so glad that you came and that you were open and people can see themselves in you because you are just the regular guy. It was just like this the regular dude.
At the end of the day, I'm a kid from St. Paul who grew up on Wig Food Stamp Succession. No lie, man. Rats and roaches, syrup sandwiches. That's me at the end of the day. That I don't change that. Now, people tell me I'm smart. I don't always agree. But yeah, am I somewhat articulate? Sure. Do I have a lot of advanced degrees? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I'm a regular dude at the end of the day. I go to a Future concert, have a good time. I'll go to an event, in Houston, have a good time.
Yeah.
These are the things that I like to do. So when I'm on, I'm on. When I'm working, I'm working. I keep everything professional and cordial. But when I want to have some fun, I let my hair down and enjoy myself.
Right. And kick it.
Absolutely.
So last thing I want to leave with is I happen to remember us having a conversation where you were sharing a little bit about your own upbringing. If you could think of anything that fit in, align with this conversation about like, how did you get here? Can you think of any parallels or anything that had to do with your own upbringing that you would say, I think this is what has gotten me in this space?
I think I jumped into marriage too soon. And I think, so not repeating, but preventing.
Yeah.
So I attempted to prevent what I grew up with, which was not the family dynamic that I thought.
That's so good.
So when I met the one, we didn't spend enough time being husband and wife. We dove into family. If I could change anything, I would have started a little slower. We were 25 years old. Yeah, man, we were young. We were super young. Like, when I think back about it, did I feel like it was the right decision at the time? Yes. But as I reflect, we probably should have waited 3 years before we started having kids.
Yeah.
Learned about what each other needed. Learned about what does it mean to be a husband? What does it mean to be a wife to each other? And then figure out the family piece. We got married and had a kid a year later intentionally. Like, he just was on. Yeah. That probably was the thing. So I was trying to prevent recreating those cycles of trauma that I experienced by creating a family that we probably weren't ready to have at the time.
And maybe even for her too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so then that's interesting when it's like we're marrying each other and we're looking for things in each other that we didn't necessarily have.
Absolutely.
Which is not always the best foundation.
Absolutely.
For starting a family. As many people do that over and over and over. We're looking for how do we fill those gaps.
I didn't know what the husband was supposed to be. And I don't think she knew what a wife was supposed to be. And also, I think both of our models for both of those things, we didn't accept.
Yep.
She didn't like how our mom was a wife to her dad. She was very vocal about that. With our marriage. The husbands, the few that I have had in my family, I didn't like their roles either.
Yep.
But we never were able to really establish what that meant to each other. We just did. We were just living and going, being on that hamster wheel. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that people need to consider when they do get married is just take your time and figure out what it means to be together with one another before you bring in children. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So much for being here. I feel like I can just have this conversation forever because I have so many questions about this.
I'll come back.
It is so good. So good. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Co-Parenting Confessions. If I can tell you anything at the end of this episode, it is don't jump too soon. Get to know who you are in relationship with. And also, if you're married, you can be co-parenting. Because if for some reason it doesn't work out, you've already laid the groundwork for what it looks like for your children to have a stable and safe environment to live in. Peace out.
Amazing.